Hello everyone and welcome to another MicroChannel webinar. My name is Simon Carolyn and I'm a Solution Architect in the SAP team. Today we'll be having a look at SAP's new version of SAP Business One, namely version 10.0. All right, just a quick agenda run through. We'll be looking at each of the new features and highlights within SAP Business One version 10. I'll be doing a demonstration on most of the features just so you can get a feel for what they're like. All right, so diving straight into it. So version 10, the most important new release that SAP have put out is their much awaited step into, I suppose, the future you'd call it, with their new web client. This is unfortunately something we're not going to have a look at today, but we will definitely have a look at it in a future session. So SAP has made strides forward here using their brand new, what they call the SAP UI5 technology, which is a subset of HTML5 technology. So basically right up to standards with the latest web technologies. As you can see, it looks very modern and it's based on SAP's Fiori design, which is what they've been using with the HANA version of SAP Business One. The first version of the new web client will have a selection of features, not everything that the normal fat client that SAP Business One has. It's basically going to be focused on sales order creations and processing of sales orders, and also activities, business partners and items. So it'll be a good tool for people in customer service. And you'll be able to use this in just about any modern web browser, such as Google Chrome or Firefox. And you can obviously also use it on mobile devices as well, such as an iPad or an iPhone or Android devices as well. Moving on to the look and feel of the actual SAP Business One client that we are all used to and love so much. Here, this is a screenshot of what the HANA version looks like, and you can see they've changed the color scheme a bit to match the new web client. So SAP calls this Belize Blue, and it's just a new look and feel. Most of the functionality is still exactly the same. It's just really a different skin on top of it. We'll have a look at some of the new user interface features that they have put into the client, subtle little tweaks towards the end of the presentation. All right, then moving on to the actual changes that have been made to the system. We're going to start off with some administration aspects first. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is enhancements that SAP has made to document printing. All right, so I'm going to jump onto my SAP demo system over here. Basically, we're going to go into document printing, and that can be reached from either your sales or purchasing modules. I'm just going to go into sales today and basically go to document printing over there. What SAP has essentially changed from the version 10 perspective is they've added this section over here, and it essentially just allows you to filter on more fields. So you can see over here we've got the BP code, the customer group or supplier group, but we've got our favorite properties field over here as well, which gives us a lot more flexibility to filter information. Another thing that SAP have done is once you've actually gone and selected documents over here, you can now get form settings over here for this particular window. So you can go and select, as you can see, quite a number of additional fields over here, and then also filter on these fields as well. So basically it allows you to get some more information before you, most of the time, email out. Obviously it's called document printing, but we use it mostly these days for emailing and bulk emailing out. And you can basically just filter out and get the exact documents that you want to email out to your customer. All right, so that's the change that SAP has made to document printing. All right, then onto reference documents. So these were added to SAP Business One in 9.3, and SAP have just added it to a few more documents within SAP, but documents that basically make it far more usable. So I'm going to take an example that I've done previously, and one of the good use cases that they've done this to is on the stock transfer request. So you might have a sales order, for instance, that requires a stock transfer of stock, and what they've done over here is they've basically enabled it for stock transfer requests, stock transfers, and a number of other documents as well, such as goods receipts and goods issues. Now, another thing I've added as well is a document count over there. So you can see we've got reference documents, got a number 1, and it's showing me that I've got only 1 document linked to this actual stock transfer request. So if I click into my 3 dots over there, you'll see that I've got that sales order over there. And obviously I can get to the sales order directly using my orange arrow. But it basically just makes linking another document to another document quite nice and easy, and also a little bit more visible now as well, that you can actually see a document count there. All right. All right, and then SAP has added an attachments tab to a number of different documents in SAP now. And just some of those ones that are particularly useful, your journal entries and production orders, 2 documents that people have been asking for quite some time. So if we go into just the ordinary journal entry, you'll see now we have the attachments tab over there now, so you can attach documents to any kind of journal entry you may be doing, just to add more value to it. And likewise with the production order as well, which is probably a pretty useful one as well. All right, and then one of the very small but very important changes, which I know personally, as my time as a consultant, I used to bash my head a little bit against the wall on, and I'm pretty sure some of our customers out there would agree with me on this, but SAP's finally increased the number of characters allowed in item groups and business partner groups as well. So previously, SAP used to only allow us 20 characters on a item group. So if we go into item groups now, we used to have to get pretty creative with how we would come up with abbreviations for maybe if you have a nested product group, you wanted to have a primary and a secondary product group in your name, you'd have to obviously shorten it down to 20 characters. But if we go and put our system information on, you can see now at the bottom left-hand side of the screen that we have a magical 100 characters now. So a lot more flexibility to come up with detailed descriptive item group names and customer group or supplier group names as well, which makes everyone's lives a lot easier. All right, and then a nice little change that SAP has made to the approval process in SAP Business One. So essentially what it allows you to do now is it allows the actual approver to go and make changes to the draft that has been submitted for approval. What I'm going to do here in this example is I've already created a purchase order from a person that requires document approval. So I'm going to go into a list of these documents, a request for document generation approval. And here's the particular document that has a request for that approval. Now, first and foremost, another thing that SAP have added over here is we have a document history. And as changes are made to this process, you'll actually see them listed over here. So that's also a nice, useful little track changes, I guess, on what has happened in this particular approval process. All right, so if I go and click into this particular draft, I could say, well, you know, instead of having to reject this and send it back to the person and then get them to change it and send it back again, obviously let's just cut out a few steps in the process and say, okay, well, let's make this $5,500, like so. And I just click the add button over here, and then I can close it down. Now, what's going to happen on the other end, if I go to my other user, is they're going to get a message back, and here you can see it just coming back now, and it says the approval process draft was updated by the authorizer. So that's the new message and the new functionality that's coming through here now. Now, if I click to the draft, I'll be able to see that that amount has changed. Now, from that person's perspective, they don't actually need to do anything more here now. That's just really for information purposes. So as the approver, I still obviously need to approve the document, and in which case that's a normal process. And we can basically put in our message back to our user, and the rest of the process is standard from then on out. So that should then essentially go back to the person, and they can then add their document as per normal, like so. All right, so just another sort of time-saving feature, I guess, just preventing the need to go backwards and forwards in the approval process, and just let that approver make the change then and let it save time. All right, and then another change SAP's made with regards to authorizations this time. So one of the things that we've been asking SAP for quite some time now is the ability to change authorizations on a final level. And SAP had begun to roll this out, particularly around master data. And if I jump into our authorization system over here and just go to any of the users over here, so Alex, the one I was just using in that previous example, you'll see now if we go to business partners and business partner master, sorry, that one there, you'll see now that we've got quite a lot more options here with regards to being able to change authorizations. And it's essentially down to tab level on these authorizations. And this is a very important change because it now allows people the flexibility to give them access to only certain aspects of the business partner master data screen or the item master data screen, whereas previously it was a case of all or nothing in most cases. So if there's important accounting stuff over here in your accounting tab that you don't want people playing around with, then you can mark it as read only, as I have it over here, and then give access to the rest of it. And that's pretty much exactly the same with your stock management as well. So if we have a look there, you'll see that you have it by tab as well. So that's a useful one, and we're hoping to see sort of more changes like that in the future from SAP as well to give us further control over that sort of stuff. All right, then moving along to the finance side of the system. Another big one that we've been waiting for a long time from SAP is the ability to drill down on financial reports. Now, I'll just jump straight in because the picture tells 1,000 words in that regard. Okay, so let's have a look at one of our favorite reports, the profit and loss. We can go to financial reports and jump into a P&L. And I'm just going to run it as is. And all of a sudden, you'll see over here now, we've got orange arrows finally in our financial reports. So you can jump straight into one of those orange arrows and get straight to your account and your balance, and then obviously zip into your GL balance as well. So again, it's just a usability tweak that SAP have made there, but a very welcome one nonetheless. And that is in your balance sheet, your profit and loss, as well as your trial balance. All right, and then they've also made a few little changes to posting periods in the system. And again, one that people have tripped up over a number of years, particularly around a world-famous little error message that people hate to see, the date deviates from permissible range error. Something that's easily solved essentially by pushing out your due dates on your posting periods by a year essentially. Now, before we get to that particular feature, another little usability tweak that SAP have made is we can finally resort these columns over here by double clicking on them and bring up your latest ones to the top. And I can see a lot of people out there fist pumping in the air going, finally. And that's something that personally bugged me quite a bit. And I know that I said we were going to save some of the usability features until the very end, but I'm going to show you a magic trick here now. Look at that. We can finally maximize that posting period screen as well. And that is the same for quite a number of screens that previously we couldn't maximize in SAP Business One. So that's a bit of a hallelujah moment. It's taken SAP long enough, but we finally got that. All right, so if I jump into some of my posting periods over, you can see I've created for next year already. This particular database, I'm working in calendar year. Obviously, we'll be working on the normal Australian financial year in most systems. But you'll see here we have a little feature that says here, there's a little new tick box. It says here, create new periods with due date 2 in next financial year. And what that's basically done, if I jump into one of these posting periods over that I've created for next year, is it will go and create the normal period for 2020. But what it's done for the due date is it's pushed it into the next year. And by doing so, we're basically going to prevent that date deviates from permissible range error from occurring essentially ever again. So, and what you can then choose is the month that you want it to change to over there. So I just put it to the end of that year, so December. So then it's going to post into all those posting periods, 31st of December, 2021. So it doesn't matter if I go into sort of period 12 or period 6 or 4, if we're going to 4, it's still going to make that the 31st of December the following year, essentially. So that one you can just change to whatever month you want it to be. In most cases, it'll probably be the last period in your financial year, which is obviously June. So basically just gives you the ability to not have to create your posting periods and then go into every one of them and go and change it to 1 year in advance to prevent that error. So again, a little time saver over there from SAP. All right, and then another quick little one that SAP have done over here is basically around your journal entry remarks. So they've basically just gone and taken that, I believe it was 100 characters, and stand to be corrected on that, but it's now 254. So this box over here, if you look at the bottom left-hand side, it's here remarks 254 characters now. So basically just gives you some more flexibility to write a more detailed remark around a manual journal entry that you've put through in the system. All right, then on to sales, purchasing, and service. SAP's made a small little tweak to the backorder reports, and that's really just another usability tweak. So if we go into the backorder reports, let me just go into that. All right, so what SAP have done is they've made it easier to see whether or not a AR reserve invoice has been paid or not. So you'll see I've added this column over here, and if you don't see it, you basically just bring it on using normal form settings over here. Now what you can do is you can then filter on the status of the AR reserve invoice, and you can then see I've got one that I put in here recently, and it's basically telling me that it hasn't been paid yet. These other ones I have here have been fully paid off and essentially then aren't technically counted in the backorder report. So again, just a little bit of extra information here that SAP is adding. All right, and then printing of service calls and contacts. Essentially, this goes through to the print setup that you normally have in SAP Business One. So if I go to print preferences, we could set up a per document printing setup. So as an example, your sales order, you can get it to automatically print or email a document, et cetera, et cetera. And previously, service calls and service contracts were not there essentially at all. So SAP have added this as an option. So you can get it to, when you add a document, you can get it to automatically email out, and you can put your email canned information over here with your subject and your body of text in there as well. So it pre-populates that before you send it out. And that's the same with the contracts as well. All right, and then another little bugbear that has been around for many, many years in SAP Business One is the blank lines that you may have seen in addresses, essentially being caused by a field that is mandated by the address format that hasn't been filled in. So we'll quickly have a look, and I'll just illustrate what we're referring to there. So if I go into a sales order, and I'm just going to use an example customer over here. Now, if I go into my logistics tab over here, you'll see that we have a shipped in a bill to address, but we got an ugly blank line over there, which ordinarily on a printout doesn't look particularly nice. Now, again, a quick little fix over here, SAP comes to the rescue, and we can go to our address formats. Now, I've got this on a shortcut pane, but I'm going to show you where this is nonetheless, because it's possibly a little bit confusing. So you go to Setup, and you go to your business partners, and you'll see your address formats over there. So if we bring that up, we're going to have a look at the European format today, because that's the example I've got. So this is the format that we have. So it's a street, block, postcode, city, and a country over there with space. And SAP have added this little tick box over here now, hide empty address lines. So all you have to really do is just go and tick that, hit update, and essentially from that moment forward, all documents created should not have the lines in them. So if I just kill the sales order over here and open it up once again, type the same person in, you'll see now, hey presto, that line is now gone. So if there are some gaps in your master data and it's showing ugly lines, your tick box in that setting will basically clean that up for you. All right, then on to inventory and distribution. So SAP have made 1 or 2 changes here. Firstly, around serial and batch number management. All right, so let's jump back into the system and I'll show you what that's all about. Okay, so if you go into your stock management and item management, we're referring to these sections over here, the items, serial numbers, and batches. Today we'll have a look at serial numbers. It's basically the same functionality in the batches as well. So if we go into serial number management, typically if you wanted to go and update some information on existing serial numbers or batches in the system that you've already captured, you can go and use this tool to do that. Now SAP's just expanded a bit upon this, and you'll see now that we have an AR reserve invoice over there, which wasn't there previously, as well as stock transfer request. So if I go in and I'm just selecting those 2 over there now, I've got some serial numbers that I've added from there, and I can now do a global update and change something on those particular serial numbers. So I'm just going to say test 1, 2, 3, go update, and you'll see it's now updated those serial numbers. So essentially just more documents that SAP is giving you the option to update on the particular serial numbers or batch numbers associated with those particular documents. All right, and then onto unit of measure groups. All right, so previously SAP didn't really allow you to change unit of measure groups on an item once there'd been transactions against it. So SAP's basically come to the party in some way over here. I'll say that because I'll show you what I mean now. And if I go and select an item that actually belongs to a unit of measure group over here. All right, so here we have one, and it has a unit of measure group over here. That's paper and the usual kinds of things we see with paper, reams of paper and things like that, those different groups. Now, if on version 9.3 or earlier that supported unit of measure groups, if I tried to change that group and there were transactions, it would be grayed out. I wouldn't be able to. But what you'll see now is this is not grayed out, and I can change it, but under certain circumstances. So if you have a look at the red error message at the bottom of the screen over there, it says you cannot change the UOM group unless the new UOM group includes the set of conversion rules of the original UOM group. So essentially SAP is saying you may change it as long as you have these pre-existing values over here as well. So if you wanted to create a revised group that has more different pack sizes and things like that in it, absolutely you can do that, but you have to have these pre-existing ones here as well, and that's obviously for historical purposes in the system and audit traceability and the like. So that's just something to bear in mind. It gives you a bit more flexibility with regards to unit of measure groups. All right, then moving on to the production side of SAP Business One. A very, very simple little update here from SAP, probably more considered a bug than anything else in my opinion. But essentially when you used to update a item master item, and I'll just bring up something that has just bring up a production order here quickly. And if I go to that bill of material, as well as the actual finished good itself, had I or in version 9.3 or earlier, had I updated the this description over here to say test 3 or 2 or whatever in there and go update, that would essentially have updated the description on the item master, but not on the bill of materials. Now version 10, and I'll refresh this, and you can see now that box has been ticked. So you can see that we now have the descriptions flowing through from both the item master and the bill of materials there. All right, then drill down from BOM to item master data. Okay, this has been something, again, personally that's bugged me for as long as I've been doing or working with SAP Business One, but SAP have finally given us the choice to change this. Now, what is this? What am I talking about? It's essentially if you click on an item that has a bill of materials, instead of taking it to the item master, it takes you to the bill of materials first, and then you have to go and click on the item again to get to the item master. And in most cases, people want to see the item master first and not necessarily the bill of materials. So SAP has given us the option and that resides under General Settings. And if we go to the Stock tab over here, you'll see at the bottom over here, open eyes to master data instead of bill of materials of a BOM when selecting a link arrow. So it's literally as simple as clicking update. Now, some of you may be sort of rolling your eyes and saying, well, I've got the BOM usability pack and I've had that fixed for quite some time already, thanks. And you'd be absolutely right. But for those of us that haven't jumped on the BOM bandwagon yet, you can now basically do that and save yourself the hassle of having to click through multiple screens to get to the information you want. All right, then moving on to project management. Again, a small little change SAP had made here, but a useful one nonetheless. So SAP introduced the Gantt chart functionality in project management in version 9.3, and they've taken that a step further and basically given us the ability to have these interactive Gantt charts. So essentially we can rejig the timeline by dragging and dropping our Gantt chart. Now, I've got a project over here that I'm going to go right-click and go to our Gantt chart, and that's going to basically pop up over here. I've just made it a bit smaller so we can compare. So if we go to a particular phase, we'll have a look at the staff briefing phase over here. So that's a phase from the 1st of November to the 4th of November. And maybe we're still briefing, so we want to push that out somewhat. So we go to our staff briefing on the Gantt chart over here, and you can see there's the actual timeline over there. Now we just click, hold down, and drag it out, pretty much like that. And let it go. Click update, and you'll see now that that staff briefing has now pushed to the 13th of the 11th. So pretty useful, yeah. So I mean, you don't have to then have a look at this and then go back and change it here on one of the dates. You just find where you want it and drag it out. So pretty sure that the project managers out there will appreciate that. All right, then we want to our sundry section, so a collection of other things that SAP has changed. All right, then with regards to a new localization, so SAP has added a new localization for the United Kingdom, which is essentially aimed at being a post-Brexit localization. So SAP is essentially ready to go with Brexit. We're not quite sure when the UK will be ready with Brexit. We're hoping pretty soon so that we can all get on with our lives. But SAP basically is ready to go with that. So you'll see an additional localization available in version 10 to cover that off. All right, then something which I know got me quite excited. The consultants were pretty excited about this as well. And those of us out there in the audience that have played around with formatted searches in SAP Business One, putting on your consultant hat, will know that historically with SAP Business One, you only are allowed to have one trigger on a formatted search. And that is okay in most cases, but there are certain more complex searches or triggers that you want to enable for some kind of business process that you want to fire off on multiple different points. So SAP has basically come and allowed us now to use actually as many triggers as we want, not even just 2 or 3. So I'll basically just quickly show you what we are referring to there. So I'll bring up a sales order over here, and this is just going to be a very, very simple example just to kind of illustrate this concept. Actually, do you want that? Okay, so a formatted search essentially is a little piece of code, a little piece of SQL code that is fired off on some action. And as mentioned previously, that was only one trigger that we used to deal with. But now we can use multiple. So I'm just going to put in a business partner here and just put in an item as well. It doesn't really matter. Now I've got a field over here, and this is a user-defined field. It doesn't really make any difference. You can put the results of formatted searches in normal SAP fields as well. But if you've ever seen one of these magnifying glasses over here and you didn't know what that is, that basically means that a formatted search is attached to that field on your form. And it's highly likely that your system would have these. Your consultants would have done it for some or other reason to basically make a process work for you. So I can get into that formatted search and then we bring up the box that basically we use to configure them. Now, that little that test MFFS is actually a little query, and you basically select that query from your query manager, and something that wouldn't be unfamiliar to a lot of people. And typically we used to just have the one field here where we would select the trigger points, and it would then fire this query off on that trigger. Now we can have, as you can see, we just keep clicking new, and we can put in as many triggers as we want. So basically, I've got this little query that's going to fire off. It's a very simple query that just spits out a little text phrase off both the BP reference number, that's that field there, and the remarks field as well, which is our good old favorite down there. So we'll just do a quick test. So if we put something in there and then hit tab, you'll see now all of a sudden I've got this little phrase that shows up over here, which is great. Now I'll delete that out again and go to the remarks box and do something similar, hit tab, and it's going to trigger that same formatted search again, and it's putting out a little message over here. So as you can see, multiple trigger points. So if you've had some sort of a process that you've been wanting to implement and the consultant's told you, sorry, we can't do that because we've only got one trigger points on our formatted searches, if you upgrade to version 10, you can solve that problem very easily. So it's quite powerful in that respect. So now you can let out all of those challenging formatted searches out in the consultants and keep them busy for us. Okay, so moving on to the next one. All right, then SAP has basically extended user-defined field support to a number of additional objects in the system. There are quite a few. I've only just listed a few here, but some of the more pertinent ones that I did observe were business partner groups, item prices, so your actual price list file itself, and many more as well. So we will publish a link to the slide deck that SAP has put out as well with regards to screenshots and pretty much everything we've covered today, and it will list out essentially all those changes that SAP has made from that sort of perspective. All right, then quite another big one that SAP has made as well is integration with Office 365. Now, basically, this is a first step in the right direction with regards to making use of the cloud technologies and the like. And how SAP have done it, I'll basically just give you a quick rundown. So if we go into our general settings, I'll just move that out the way, and go to our path tab over here. Historically, we only used to have normal actual locations on our server where we used to store Excel files, Word files, pictures, attachments, etc., kind of thing. Now you'll see we've got a radio button there for OneDrive. Okay, so basically what we can have happen is if you create a document in SAP, you can, instead of saving out a physical file, you can actually get it to use Office 365 to move that file into a OneDrive location so that all of your attachments and everything like that go straight into the cloud for safekeeping. Now, this does need to be set up, and it's a fairly complicated setup process. So you might want to consult with your consultant when setting this up as well. So if you click on this URL over here, it will pop up this new sub-website of the SAP SLD, which is where we do a lot of the internal technical config of SAP Business One. And what SAP have done is they have actually bundled a lot of different templates for Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel with regards to the typical kind of documents that you'd be using over here. So I've just taken a copy of both the sales order and the Word document and the Excel file, and we'll just quickly have a look at those. So if I open up the Word version of that, you'll see it essentially looks a little bit cryptic. It's got a whole bunch of what we call fill points in it. And what SAP is basically going to do is going to take the information from your document and insert the relevant data into these fill fields over here. Then SAP will essentially go and store that document in the OneDrive cloud for you. So it's just a step in that direction with regards to making use of more of those sort of cloud tools that more and more people are using. Here you can see as well is the Excel template. So you can see it's made to look quite a lot like the standard SAP Business One templates. It just basically gives you some more options there as well. So as I mentioned, the setup around that is fairly complicated, so you may just want to get your IT team to talk to the consultants as well with regards to hooking that up in version 10. All right, and as I mentioned earlier, the enhanced user interface, the SAP has made some very subtle little tweaks to SAP Business One. So we'll just jump back in there. First and foremost, you may have already noticed that we have the name of the company now sitting on the title bar over here, as well as the logged in user. So that's just giving more visibility to which user account you're logging in with SAP and also which company you're connected to. You can also click on this and it's essentially like selecting choose company over here. So pretty much how it works with the SAP HANA version. And you can basically go and change companies if you want just by doing that instead of having to go to the main menu. Enhanced form behavior. All right, so that goes hand in hand with what I was talking about earlier on those posting periods, is that we can now resize a lot of windows that we couldn't previously. So if we go into the general settings over here, it used to be stuck at this size. Now we can make it full screen. So not terribly remarkable, but useful nonetheless. And one of the other things that SAP has done as well is, you can see there's this little icon over here that basically allows us to get rid of the toolbar if you find the toolbar offensive for some reason. I personally don't really see the point in that, but each to his or her own in that respect. All right, and then the last point is more of a technical point than anything else. So up until basically version 9.3 or version 10, SAP Business One supported both 32-bit and 64-bit programs. So you may even have the 32-bit and the 64-bit version of the SAP Business One client installed on your PC or on a terminal server that you use. And SAP has now taken or made the choice that it will, from version 10 onwards, only support 64-bit. So that basically means you will only now have a 64-bit SAP Business One client to work with, and a lot of the other components such as data transfer workbench will now also only be 64-bit. So it's essentially, I'd imagine there would be virtually no one out there that still has a computer running in 32-bit mode anyway. So it's a natural progression, and it also just means that SAP doesn't have to look after two different code bases, which basically just saves time and effort there as well. All right, so the big question is, when can I get hold of it? And SAP's basically kicked it into what we call early adopter support right now. So that essentially means that any one of you out there is eligible to upgrade to version 10 right now. It hasn't been formally released as in the full release version, but you can agree to go into early adopter support, which basically means you upgrade as per normal. And if some sort of a bug occurs or causes some process to fail or something like that, you do have high priority support from SAP available at a moment's notice, effectively. So basically kind of like a hypercare system. So you're not left to fend by yourself with sort of bleeding edge software. You do have SAP support and obviously MicroChannel support in that regard as well. So if you are curious about making an early hop onto version 10, please feel free to contact your account managers, and we can have a discussion about it and see if it's the right move for you. For those of you out there that are happy to wait until the full release comes out, based off what happened with version 9.3, it essentially came out probably about 4 to 6 months after the early adopter support came out. So we're estimating that April or May next year will probably be when the full release comes out. This is obviously subject to change because it might just be the case that version 10 is particularly bug-free and they may be able to push it out sooner. So it could be in March for all we know. But essentially we just have to play it out one by year and basically just let SAP let us know when it's ready to release to the masses. So it's a natural benefits of moving on to version 10. So one of the big benefits from a HANA perspective is that SAP Business One is moving on to HANA version 2. And that is obviously the latest and greatest version of SAP HANA, the in-memory database system. And you may ask yourself, well, so what does it give me? What's better than version 2 than version 1? Version 2 essentially goes quite a lot deeper into machine learning, adaptive analytics, and the like, and essentially just builds on SAP HANA 1. It's a lot more mature now than it was, a lot more enterprise ready, so a lot more enterprise customers have been using it and obviously applying their feedback into the product. So HANA 2 really just builds on HANA 1 and basically enables a lot more in the line of machine learning and adaptive analytics and all those sorts of buzzwords that we love dearly. All right, then obviously the new web client based on the latest SAP web technologies. And just to reiterate as well, the SAP web clients at this stage is only for the HANA release of SAP Business One. So unfortunately, those folks sitting on the SQL Server version of SAP Business One, we have discussed internally that we do feel that at some point in the future, SAP will roll out the web clients to the SQL Server base of customers. We have absolutely no confirmation of that whatsoever at this point, so that is conjecture. But there may be a change in heart of SAP further down the line with regards to that. All right, and then the last point really is just further extending and refining that old favorite of ours, SAP Business One, and just chiseling it and keeping it going to future-proof your investment.